The little town of Grimwood had a standing that extended a long ways past its humble lines. Settled inside a thick woodland, it was known for its creepy air and a disrupting story that local people only from time to time imparted to pariahs. The people who considered wandering into Grimwood generally saw the exceptional quiet that appeared to encompass the town, particularly as sundown plummeted. At the core of this town carried on with an elderly person named Elias. Elias was the town smithy, a calling went down through ages. His hands, however twisted and calloused from long stretches of work, were consistent and exact, fit for changing crude metal into wonderful, many-sided showstoppers. However, it wasn't his expertise that put Elias on the map, it was his left hand, a prosthetic made completely of gold. The brilliant hand was a wonder, apparently alive, moving with the ease of a genuine appendage. It was said to have a hold areas of strength for his iron, yet sensitive enough to deal with the best gems. Be that as it may, the beginning of this marvelous limb was covered in secret and dread. Elias never discussed how he came to have the brilliant hand, yet murmurs among the locals recounted a dim deal struck at an ungodly hour. Some guaranteed he had lost his genuine hand in a lamentable mishap, and in his franticness, he had looked for the assistance of a strange figure who meandered the woodland at sunset, a figure who conceded wishes at a horrendous cost. One virus evening, an outsider showed up in Grimwood. He was a tall, emaciated man with sharp elements and eyes that shined with a savage light. He presented himself as Dr. Julian Ross, a student of history and gatherer of uncommon relics. He had known about Elias and his brilliant hand, and his interest had carried him to the town. "May I see your striking hand?" Dr. Ross asked Elias in the smithy's fashion, his voice smooth and obstinate. Elias wavered, then, at that point, expanded his left arm, the brilliant hand shining in the firelight. Dr. Ross inspected it with a combination of interest and covetousness. "I have gone all over, yet I have seen nothing like this. How could you stop by such a glorious curio?" Dr. Ross asked, his eyes never leaving the brilliant limb. Elias' demeanor obscured. "A few things are improved left unseen," he answered tersely. Determined, Dr. Ross kept on examining, his interest verging on fixation. "Clearly, there should be a story worth telling. The world ought to know about your noteworthy creation," Elias murmured, realizing that the man wouldn't yield. He motioned for Dr. Ross to sit by the fire and started his story. "It was quite a long time back," Elias began, his voice weighty with the heaviness of his recollections. "I was a young fellow, glad and aggressive. My fashion was notable in these parts, and I was anxious to show off my abilities. At some point, a venturing-out trader came to the town. He carried with him unusual and fascinating things, any semblance of which I had never seen." Elias stopped, his eyes far off. Among his products was a wonderful, brilliant special necklace. Having mysterious properties was said. "Stupidly, I exchanged all I had for that talisman, accepting it would bring me fortune and distinction. Be that as it may, the ornament was reviled. That evening, as I worked late in the fashion, the metal I was forming detonated, cutting off my left hand." Dr. Ross inclined forward, his advantage aroused. "What's more, that is the point at which you got the brilliant hand." Elias shook his head. "No. I was frantic, in unfathomable agony, and prepared to surrender. That is the point at which she showed up, a figure shrouded in shadows. She offered me an arrangement, another hand, one of unadulterated gold, in return for my spirit. In my desolation and hopelessness, I concurred." The fire popped as Elias proceeded. "The brilliant hand was beyond what I might have at any point expected. It allowed me unrivaled expertise and strength. Be that as it may, it accompanied a revile. Every evening, I'm tormented by bad dreams of the lady in the shadows, and I realize that one day, she will come to gather her due." Dr. Ross' eyes shined with fervor. "An interesting story, genuinely. Be that as it may, without a doubt, there should be a method for breaking the revile?" Elias shook his head unfortunately. "I have looked for a really long time, yet without much of any result. The cost should be paid. That evening, as Dr. Ross lay in the little motel at the edge of the town, he found himself unfit to rest. His brain hustled with considerations of the brilliant hand and the power it addressed. The charm of such a curio was areas of strength for to even consider standing up to. He needed to have it. Under the front of murkiness, Dr. Ross crawled to the metalworker's produce. The town was quiet, the main sound the murmur of the breeze through the trees. He entered the manufacture, his eyes checking the room until they chose the figure of Elias, snoozing on a bed in the corner. The brilliant hand laid on a table next to him, gleaming in the faint light,